Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana
ki jai.
Jai.
Shri Jaya Gauranga Dayanitya ki jai. Gauradesh Dhamma ki jai.
Jai.
Today, well, Transcendental Appearance Day of Shri Jaya Gauranga Dayanitya ki jai. Because today is the Appearance Day, right?
It was Thursday.
Oh, is it Thursday? Was it certain? Okay.
Today we wanted to celebrate.
Right. Okay. Hare Krishna. Today we will read from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, but before that we'll take a little swim in the nectar of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental pastimes. The Harisari Transcendental Diary.
Das war das Große statt das Kleine.
Oh yeah? Okay. Oh, sweet. Thank you. I just feel guilty using all of this electricity. Jai Srila Prabhupada. All right. October 1976 to November 1976, Sri Vrindavan Dham. In today's mail was a letter from Brahmananda Maharaj sent from Mombasa. He is there with Navayogendra Swami in a quandary because several life members have offered to raise funds to buy a large house there. The purchase price is 450,000 rupees, and they will raise 300,000 rupees. They want Brahmananda Maharaj to personally raise the rest, because previously Chayavana Swami had collected 200,000 rupees in Mombasa, but took the funds to Nairobi, and no one knows what it was spent on. Accepting responsibility for not overseeing things properly previously, Brahmananda said that he is willing to do the fundraising but has limited options. He cannot collect in Mombasa because the life members will raise their portion from well-wishers there. He cannot collect in Nairobi, his main base, because people there will not like to give for a project in Mombasa. He doesn't feel he can raise funds in America, because right now Srila Prabhupada is sending all available funds to projects here in India. So he was writing to ask whether he can approach Ambarish Prabhu for the funds, since Ambarish has visited Africa and was intending to send funds to our Nairobi center. Brahmananda is well aware that Ambarish Prabhu has to be dealt with sensitively, and has put himself Jai Shri Jaya Gauranga Dayanitya ki jai. And he has put himself directly under Srila Prabhupada's care as far as dispersal of his funds go. That's what we should all do. Or, following in his footsteps. Okay. Prabhupada was pleased that his GBC did not directly approach Ambarish for the money. Nevertheless, in his reply, he did not directly address Brahmananda Maharaj's request, but by inference discouraged his proposal. First, he delivered a mild admonishment. Chayavana has misspent, that is clear. Therefore, indirectly, we are responsible because we could not control him. Slack management. Arrange things so that in the future these things may not occur. He then questioned the need for such a project. Whether we require our own house in Mombasa, why spend energy in that way when there is no money? Preaching is first and foremost. If by preaching people will contribute, then we can get. Otherwise, there is no need. Problem solved. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comments or questions? Anybody would like to say something? about this? I have one small thing I think is really, really nice what is said here. That Ambarish Maharaj is very wealthy, right? We all know that. He's very wealthy. He's heir to the Ford, how would you call that? Yeah, he's like somehow related to Ford, right? He's a grandson? Something like that, yeah. And so the Ford inheritance, he's an heir to the Ford, what do you call that? The Ford Empire or something, right? Yeah, and so he was attracted to Srila Prabhupada, like all of us. And, either through our spiritual masters or, however it may have been, reading his books, like that. And he decided to spend his money according to the instructions of Srila Prabhupada, his spiritual master. That's it. I think that's great. Example, right? Okay, Krishna, Guru, you tell me what to do. I don't have much, a few pennies, or a lot of pennies, but I will do it exactly as you tell me to do it. That's a wonderful example. Nothing will be misspent, and if it is, it's not your fault. It's between Guru and Krishna. But nothing will be misspent. Not a farthing. So this is a wonderful example that we can all aspire towards, because we all want to secure our own well-being, which is natural. This is called defending. It's a propensity of living entities to defend. All of us here today, and in general as well. We want to defend, protect, secure. I'm also doing it, but I'm so fortunate. Krishna's taken everything away. Luckily, I'm not homeless. So I'm grateful for that, but I have nothing to defend anymore. And I decided recently, very recently, that I'm just going to focus on my service instead of making plans. Because I don't know what God's plan is. Krishna's plan, I don't know. He doesn't tell me always in advance. He misleads me sometimes. He's not always honest. He knows that. So do we. But I'm just going to wait to see what his plan is, because then I know that I can't go wrong. If I just focus on my service, and he will reveal his plan according to my surrender to the service. He will reveal his plan, and I will surrender to that because I have no choice. And I'm feeling more and more that even if I had a choice, I would probably still surrender to his plan, because he gets his way in the end anyway. And I don't want to make it hard for him, and hard for me. So I just give whatever he wants. So, without further ado, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
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 Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama
Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Pancha Tattva ki jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, today we are reading from the 16th chapter, and it says verse number 20, but I don't know if that's correct. It may be more than that. Let's see what we have here. Is it actually that we are still in verse 20? 16, 20? Nobody knows for certain? Okay, I will make sure to change it.
not.
Not
I think maybe one more.
121?
Yes. Good.
Oh. Did we read about Lakshmi Devi leaving her body? Okay.
20 is...
20 is correct then, yeah. Alright, thank you, sir. Okay, Jai, Hare Krishna. Ei mata bange prabhu kare nana lila, aita nava dvipe lakshmi virahe duki haila. So we just do one word for word because I'm told that I can read, Ei mata, in this way, Bange, in East Bengal, Prabhu, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kare, does, Nana, various, Leela, pastimes, Eta, here, Navadvip, in Navadvip, Lakshmi, the wife of Nimai Pandit, Virahe, in separation, Dhuki, unhappy, Haila, became. Translation, and there is no purport, but translation by His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Because the Lord was engaged in various ways in preaching work in East Bengal, His wife, Lakshmi Devi was very unhappy at home in separation from her husband. Text 21. Prabhura Vira Hasarpa Lakshmire Dansila Vira Hasarpa Vishe Tangra Paroloka Haila. The snake, translation, the snake of separation bit Lakshmi Devi, and its poison caused her death. Thus she passed to the next world. She went back home, back to Godhead. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, verse 6, Yang yang vapi smaran bhavam jajati ante kalevaram. One's practice in thinking throughout his entire life determines the quality of his thoughts at death, and thus, at death, one obtains a suitable body. According to this principle, Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune from Vaikuntha, who was absorbed in thought of the Lord in separation from him, certainly went back home to the Vaikuntha Loka after death. Text 22. Let's see. We'll show you. You see. Text 22. Antare janila prabhu yate antaryami desere aila prabhu sachi dukha jani. Sachi dukha jani. Translation. Lord Caitanya knew about the disappearance of Lakshmi Devi because he is the super soul himself. Thus he returned home to solace his mother, Sachi Devi, who was greatly unhappy about the death of her daughter-in-law. Excuse me. Text 23. Ghare aila prabhu bahulana dana jana tattva jnana kaila sachira dukha vimochana. Translation. When the Lord returned home, bringing with him great wealth and many followers, he spoke to Sachi Devi about transcendental knowledge to relieve her of the grief she was suffering. Purport. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Dahinus yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra nambhuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 13. Such verses from Bhagavad Gita or any other Vedic literature give valuable instructions on the occasion of someone's passing away. By discussing such instructions from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, a sober man can certainly understand that the soul never dies. It passes from one body to another. This is called transmigration of the soul. A soul comes into this material world and creates bodily relationships with a father, a mother, sisters, brothers, a wife, and children. But all these relationships pertain to the body and not the soul. Therefore, as described in Bhagavad Gita, Dhirhas tatrana moyati. One who is sober is not disturbed by such phenomenal changes within this material world. Such instructions are called tattva katha, or real truth. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about this verse. So a few things are going on here. There is the introduction of the Dahinus yatha dehe. This is a very important verse. I think this verse is the second most quoted verse by Srila Prabhupada. Why is that? You know, this is the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, right? This is so important. I mean, there are 9 or 10, 11, 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srila Prabhupada has translated 10, right? And given purports. But if we don't understand that we are not the body, it becomes very difficult to access the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. It's very hard to get access to them. Because first we have to understand that we are not the body. And what does that mean, that we are not the body? Ahankar. I was just reading this morning, designations. Mr., man, right? Doctor, lawyer, president, prime minister, police officer, father, mother, son, sister, husband, wife. All of these are designations that pertain only to the body. That's it. Cut. And if we are holding on to these things, it means that we haven't really fully realized Dahinus ninyata dehe. We really need to get this. Dahinus ninyata dehe. The body is a vehicle we're traveling in. It's not the sum and substance of our existence. It's just a vehicle. We just travel in it. And then we have to pass it. And we travel into another one. Or, maybe another body. But the next body, hopefully, will be spiritual. We can finish our time here. But if not, we can continue, hopefully, in Lord Caitanya's Sankirtan movement. That is also glorious. Distributing books, prasadam, harinam, glorious activities, whether you are, well, it doesn't matter what you are materially. If you're doing these activities, you're the most intelligent person. The most. You're more intelligent than any professor of philosophy or mathematics, because you have understood the sum and substance of life. Not everybody is equally endowed with material qualifications, and that is because of their past karma. That's the conclusion of Scripture. But so therefore, even if you haven't have this strong, very strong intelligence to have advanced, how do we call this, human capital, right? Advanced human capital, skills, job skills, how to use a computer, how to use a machine, how to write, how to read. You may not have very advanced job skills, human capital, because of past karma. But that doesn't matter. It does not matter. Anybody can take part in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Even just by chanting Hare Krishna, even if you cannot chant because you cannot speak, you can assist the devotees who are also bringing this holy name around. Everybody can take part. It doesn't require advanced material skills. Some other things that are being spoken about here. This is so important. Transmigration of the soul. Okay. One who is sober is not disturbed by such phenomenal changes within this world, material world. There are so many changes. I mean, you can get the flu. You can get the COVID flu. Change. You can lose all your money. You can get a lot of money. Oh, look out. You can inherit a lot of money, a lot of property, a lot of resources, material resources, overnight. And you can end up being very disturbed by that, which means you still think you're the body. Dhira satanamuyati. A sober-minded person is not disturbed by the changes. You may go from Mr. No One to Mr. Someone, special, famous. Don't be disturbed. Disturbance means you respond. Oh, yes, I'm important. Don't you know? Don't you know who I am? Haven't you heard? On the TV, there's a newspaper. My name is everywhere. I'm somebody. Disturbance is there. That means disturbance. Big disturbance. You're disturbed in your mind. See, disturbance doesn't have to mean that your mother dies. Of course, that's also disturbing. And you should act accordingly. You should observe the social functions for the passing of a relative. The Pandavas did that. But in your heart, you should know, you should understand that this person is receiving another body, either spiritual or material, and they will continue their journey back to Godhead. Because ultimately, we are all going there. Some of us faster than others, hopefully. Even, some of us with that intention. But, yeah, anyway, just to go on with it. Right. So don't be disturbed by the phenomenal changes of this material world. Whether you are homeless overnight, I was homeless twice in the last year. It's difficult. Especially if it's in the wintertime. It was for me in the wintertime. It's very hard to sleep because the only warm places have lights that are on. That's like a curse, I tell you. And it starts to bug with your mind. Actually, the second time it was better. That's when I was outside in nature. But that was also that's not like, anyway, it was March. So it was early spring. It was cold. But it wasn't as bad as the 3 days in February. That was difficult. I did find a place where there weren't lights on, but it was so cold I couldn't sleep. So, don't be disturbed. These changes, don't be disturbed. Keep your focus. No matter what happens. Stay focused on the objective. Whether it's purifying yourself because of previous sinful activities of a large amount, severe heavy-duty sinful activities, so you have to have a little bit of inconvenience, or if it's becoming, receiving a lot of wealth, a lot of fortune. Don't be disturbed. Don't forget why we're here. Stay focused on the goal. When you're driving a car really fast, don't look at the road signs. I mean, you want to look at the road signs, but like you're driving the car really fast, don't look at the distraction. Somebody crashed. A deer, a rabbit, a tree. You could go off the road because you're going very fast. A slight deviation could send you really in the wrong direction. Don't be disturbed. Stay focused on the goal, no matter what happens. Don't forget. Don't forget. Very important. Whether good or bad, both are changes in this material world. There is no, it's like, okay, it seems to be good, it seems to be bad, but really, if you forget, and no matter how good it is, it's horrible. If you forget why you're here, we're trying to go somewhere, a destination. Vyavasa yatmika buddh here. Eke ha. Eke means one. Kurunandana. Your mind has to be focused, one pointed intelligence. Don't let wealth distract you. Don't let Dhanam, Janam, and Sundarim. Either you're a man or woman, doesn't matter. You can be distracted by Sundarim. It means hardcore sensual enjoyment. The kind we all have a very strong attachment for lifetimes. Anybody can become distracted. Dhanam, Janam, and Sundarim. Stay focused. Ekeha Kurunandana. Child of the Kurus. Ekeha. One. Vivasa Yamika. Buddhir. Intelligence. One focus. One focused intelligence. One minded or one. Those are on this path of resolute determination. The aim is one. Yeah. Resolute determination. Ekeha Kurunandana. Focus on that goal. Don't matter what. If it rains, if it's sunny, if you're in Hawaii or Finland. If you have a lot of wealth or no wealth, stay focused on the goal. You'll get there. Don't be distracted. It can be very difficult. Okay. Sishya guna lana puna fijara vilasa vijabale sabajini audhatya prakasa. Translation. After coming back from East Bengal, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again began educating others. By the strength of his education, he conquered everyone, and thus he was greatly proud. Jai, Nimai Pandit Ki Jai. Text 25. Tabe Vishnu Priya Thakuranira Parinaya Tabe Takarila Prabhu Digvijaya Jaya. Translation. Then Lord Caitanya married Vishnu Priya, the goddess of fortune, and thereafter he conquered a champion of learned named Keshava Kashmiri. Purport. As in the modern day, there are many champions in sports. So in bygone days, there were many learned scholars in India who were champions in learning. One such person was Keshava Kashmiri. Are you sure we didn't read this? I'm sure we read this. Well, we'll read it again. Okay. He traveled all over India. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe I'm confused. And at last came to Navadvip to challenge the learned scholars there. Now, I'm very confident we read this. I've heard this story so many times, but it's okay. Unfortunately, he could not conquer the learned scholars in Navadvip, for he was defeated by the boy scholar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, he understood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he surrendered unto him and later became a pure Vaishnava in the Sampradaya of Nimbarka. He wrote Kaustubha Prabha, a commentary on the Vedanta commentary of the Nimbarka Sampradaya, which is known as the Parijata Bhashya. The Bhakti Ratnakara mentions Keshava Kashmiri and lists his predecessors in the disciplic succession of the Nimbarka Sampradaya. Srinivasacharya, Visva Acharya, Purushottama, Vilasa, Swarupa, Madhava, Balabhadra, Padma, Syama, Gopala, Kripa, Deva Acharya, Sundara Bhatta, Padmanabha, Upendra, Ramachandra, Vamana, Krishna, Padmakara, Sravana, Bhuri, Madhava, Syama, Gopala, Balabhadra, Gopinatha, Keshava, Gokula, and Keshava Kashmiri. It is stated in the Bhakti Ratnakara that Keshava Kashmiri was a favorite devotee of Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. By her grace, he was an extremely influential scholar, and he was the greatest champion among all the scholars in the four corners of the country. Therefore, he got the title Digvijaya, which means one who has conquered everyone in all directions. He belonged to a very respectable Brahmana family of Kashmir. Later, by the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave up the profession of winning championships and became a great devotee. He joined the Nimbarka Sampradaya, one of the Vaishnava communities of the Vedic culture. Text 20. A student was supposed to study grammar carefully for 12 years in the beginning of his life, because if one is expert in the grammar of the Sanskrit language, all the Shastras are open to him. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jai, Shri Shri Vijay Gauranga Nitai Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was famous for teaching grammar to students, and therefore Keshava Kashmiri first referred to his position as a teacher of grammar. He was very proud of his literary career. He was far above the first lessons of grammar, and so he thought the position of Nimai Pandit not at all comparable to his own. Vyakarana madhyajani padaha kalapa sunilun pankite tomare sishera sanglapa. I understand that you teach Kalapya Vyakarana. I have heard that your students are very expert in the word jugglery of this grammar. Purport. Is it on? Okay. There are many schools of grammar in the Sanskrit language, the most famous of which are the systems of Panini and the Kalapa and Kaumudi grammars. There were different branches of grammatical knowledge, and a student of grammar was supposed to study them all in 12 years. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was famous as Nimai Pandit, taught grammar to his students, who became expert in dealing with the word jugglery of complicated grammar. Almost anyone expert in studying grammar interprets the Shastras in many ways by changing the root meanings of their words. A student of grammar can sometimes completely change the meaning of a sentence by juggling grammatical rules. Keshava Kashmiri indirectly taunted Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by implying that although he was a great teacher of grammar, such grammatical juggling of root meanings did not require great expertise. This was a challenge to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because it was prearranged that Keshava Kashmiri would have to discuss the Shastras with Nimai Pandit. From the very beginning, he wanted to bluff the Lord. Thus, the Lord replied as follows. Text 33. Prabhu kahe vyakarana padai abhimana kari sishyete na bujhe ami bujhaitik nari. Translation. The Lord said, "Yes, I am known as a teacher of grammar, but factually, I cannot impress my students with grammatical knowledge, nor can they understand me very well." Purport. Since Keshava Kashmiri was a little puffed up, the Lord increased his artificial pride by presenting himself as subordinate to him. Thus he flattered him as follows. Kahan tumi sarva sastre kaviche pravina, kahan ami sabed sishu paduyana vina. Translation. My dear sir, whereas you are a very learned scholar in all sorts of scriptures and are very experienced in composing poetry, I am only a boy, a new student, and nothing more. Text 35. Tomara kavitva kichu sunite hoya mana kripa kare yadi gangara varnana. Translation. Excuse me. Therefore, I desire to hear your skill in composing poetry. We could hear this if you would mercifully describe the glory of Mother Ganga. Text 36. Suniya Brahmana Garve Vanite Lagila Gati Eka Sata Shloka Gangara Vanila. Translation. When the Brahman Keshava Kashmiri heard this, he became still more puffed up. And within 1 hour he composed 100 verses describing Mother Ganga. Wow, that's pretty good. Text 37. Suniya Karila Prabhu Bahuta Satkara Toma Samma Priti Vite Kavinahi Ara. Translation. The Lord praised him, saying, "Sir, there is no greater poet than you in the entire world." Text 38. Tomara kavita shloka bhujite kara sakti tumi bale jana arta kimva sarasvati. Translation. Your poetry is so difficult that no one can understand it but you and Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning. Purport. Replying to Keshava Kashmiri sarcastically, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indirectly minimized the value of his poetry by saying, "Yes, your compositions are so nice that no one but you and your worshipable mother, the goddess of learning, can understand them." Keshava Kashmiri was a favorite devotee of Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as a master of the goddess of learning, has the right to speak sarcastically of her devotees. In other words, although Keshava Kashmiri was proud of being favored by the goddess of learning, he did not know that she is controlled by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Eka shlokera ata yadi karanija mukhe suni saba lokataba tabe paiba barasuke. But if you explain the meaning of one verse, we can now hear it from your own mouth and thus be very happy. Tabe digvijai vyakyara shloka puchila sata slokera eka sloka prabhuta bediya. The Digvijay, Keshava Kashmiri, inquired which verse he wanted explained. The Lord then recited one of the 100 verses Keshava Kashmiri had composed. Mahadvangangaya satatam idam abati nitarang yad esha Sri Vishnu's charana kamalot pati subhaga. Dvitya Sri Lakshmira Iva Sura Narayar Archa Charana Bhavani Bharatur Ya Sirashi Vibhavati Adbhuta Guna. Translation. The greatness of Mother Ganga always brilliantly exists. She is the most fortunate because she emanated from the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, of Sri Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. She is the second goddess of fortune, and therefore she is always worshipped by the demigods and by humanity. Endowed with all wonderful qualities, she flourishes on the head of Lord Shiva. E shlokera atakara prabhu yadi baila vismita hana digvijay prabhu re puchila. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked him to explain the meaning of this verse, the champion, very much astonished, inquired from him as follows. Jan Javata praya ami shloka padiya tara madhya shloka tumi kaiche kante kaila. I recited all the verses like the blowing wind. How could you completely learn by heart even one among those verses? Prabhu kahe devera vare tumi kavi vara aiche devera vare keho hoya shruti dhara. The Lord replied, by the grace of the Lord, someone may become a great poet, and similarly, by His grace, someone else may become a great Shrutidhara, who can memorize anything immediately. Purport. In this connection, Shrutidhara is a very important word. Shruti means hearing, and Dhara means one who can capture. Formerly, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, almost everyone, especially the intelligent men, the Brahmanas, was a Shrutidhara. As soon as a student heard any of the Vedic wisdom from his master, he could remember it forever. There was no need to refer to books, and therefore there was no written books in those days. The spiritual master delivered the Vedic hymns and their explanations to the student, who would then remember them forever, without consulting books. To become a Shrutidhara one can remember simply by hearing is a great achievement for a student. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Yad yad vibhutimat sadvang srimad urjitam evava. Tat tad eva gacha tvang mamate jo ksa sambhavam. Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring but from a spark of my splendor. As soon as we find anything extraordinary, we should understand that such an extraordinary manifestation is the special grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied to the champion, Keshava Kashmiri, that just as he was greatly proud of being a favorite devotee of Mother Saraswati, so someone else, like he himself, being favored by the personality of Godhead, could become a Sridhara and thus memorize anything immediately simply by hearing it. So we're stopping now in text 45. So somehow we will have to find a pin and make a mark. Shri Chaitanya Caritamrita ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oops.